the same clothes anymore than when I was 14 years old or 15 years. They're gone. Even if you have a kurta and you wash it long enough, gradually the kurta deteriorates. So the living entity in this material world is in this predicament that you have to take a material body as a soul to exist. It's like a space suit. Otherwise the soul cannot, it can exist, but it cannot express itself, it cannot eat, etc. It cannot follow its path of sense gratification. So it has to take a body, and alas, this body deteriorates, but the soul is eternal. So he is in this situation, and as long as he realizes this, that I'm not this body, he's in a fortunate position, but most people don't realize that. And most people are conditioned in this material world and they have no idea who they are, because they're suffering an intense sense of an identity crisis. An identity crisis. They think they're something which they are not, and they want to be that's why they want to be someone else. Because there's some deep doubt there somewhere. They're not happy with the way how they look or something. Michael Jackson was perpetually unhappy how he looked, and he had one face operation after the other. And because they want to be someone else. You know, everybody wants to be somewhere else. That's why fashions come in. Fashions are nothing else but the external presentation of the identity crisis of the soul in this material world. That's all it is. It's an identity crisis. And Krishna never suffers an identity crisis, nor those who are in the spiritual world suffer an identity crisis. They know they are spirits. And even in the material world, they know that they are spirits in the material world. There's this singer, this British rock singer, Sting. Who has ever heard his name? Anybody? Sting. So we visited his concert at one stage in Leixlip, and an island, Leixlip Castle, and we preached behind the stage to him. One devotee, I was still a younger devotee, one devotee, Yadu Vendu, he preached to him in between his act, and he was listening very intensely. And then he said, now I have to go on stage. Put it in one sentence. What is it that you want to tell me? And this boy said that you're a spirit in the material world. And so a few months later we drove down the highway. We are spirits in the material world, spirits in the... He made a song out of it. He never paid a dime to us. Would have been nice. We are maybe beyond a lot of things, but never beyond a little donation. So in any case, this is the truth, that we are spirits in the material world. George Harrison also had a foundation, the Material World Foundation. And through this foundation, the Bhaktivedanta Mena was bought, for example. A lot of things he did through this foundation. So we are spirits in the material world, but we do not know because we are in ignorance. And religiosity in general is in ignorance. That religiosity that Krishna asked us to give up, Sarva Dharma and Prityaja, that's not Sanatana Dharma. So Sanatana Dharma you cannot give up, because it's Sanatan, right? We cannot give up our Dharma as soul, we cannot give up, but you can give up temporary ideas of Dharma, and you will give them up. So in mundane religiosity there is hardly any knowledge of God, hardly any knowledge. There's hardly any knowledge of the soul. Hardly any knowledge. You know, it's not there. We are not here to belittle it, but even Prabhupada, he had very strong words. It comes out of the discussion with the Kazi. When Lord Chaitanya spoke with a cousin, a Muslim cousin, his uncle. He said that, my dear uncle, your scriptures are not very perfect. They're full of faults. And the Qazi was enlightened enough, he agreed to that. He said, yes, that's a fact. So then Prabhupada wrote this wonderful purport in Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita. The Shastras of the Yavana or meat eaters. So from there I can understand that I, Prithu Das, is born a Yavana. Now, I'm not upset about that. Somebody says that, well, Yavanas is a low-class race. I agree to that. I have no problem with that at all. You know, in America you say women are less than men, immediately become furious, infuriated. But it's true, there are grades of forms, of human forms. And so Yavanas, in generally, they are meat eaters, and they have no culture, and their scriptures are not eternal, like Prabhupada said. Prabhupada says here, let me quote, the scriptures of the Yavanas are three, the Old Testament, the New Testament, and the Quran. Now, I don't say that, but Prabhupada said it. I just repeat it. You know, I'm not to be blamed. If I would say this in public in Germany, that the Quran is a scripture that has been recently manufactured and it is not perfect, I may not wake up in the morning because I have a bread knife in my back. That's the situation, at least a bread knife in my back, you know. I may not wake up because of it. So this is their history. Old Testament, their compilation is history. They are not eternal like Vedic knowledge. Therefore, they have the arguments and reasoning, yes, but they're not very sound and transcendental. Because as soon as you say that we have one life in this earth, that means it is neither sound nor transcendental. It doesn't make sense, because you cannot explain why, if there's only one life, somebody is born unfortunate, and he has an unfortunate life. Say somebody is born in Kyrgyzstan or say in Korea, and he has no concept of God. And his parents are thieves. His parents are thieves. So he has no morality about thieving, because if the parents, people cannot develop morality if the parents are immoral. It's not possible. People cannot be ethical if their parents are unethical. They have to learn this. You have to learn from childhood, right? You learn this from cleanliness. You learn actually from childhood, right? And so, so somebody in Korea, a Korean young boy, his parents are thieves. And so he becomes a thief, naturally, and he goes out, and one day he sees there's a beautiful bread in the window of a baker. He grabs it. There's a baker there, he grabs his hand. And he sees there's a knife lying there, this boy. And he takes the knife and stabs the baker right into the heart. The baker dies. He runs over the street because people pursue him. He runs right into the car and dies. Not in the knowledge of Lord Jesus Christ of Nazareth. And so according to Christian teachings, what is his hope? He doesn't die in a state of grace. This man had no chance. Right from the start, he's born in a family of thieves. His whole life he lives like that. He has no conscience about it. And so he dies like that. What kind of God is that? Where's God in such things? They cannot explain. They cannot explain. Like I advise all of you that are working in the universities, you should challenge your friends, if they're Christians or Muslims, say, why is there so much injustice and suffering in this world. Where is God in this? How do you explain that? God is good, He's kind, and somebody suffers unimaginable pain. As a child, my brother did. Unimaginable pain. Somebody has everything. Somebody dies fat and happy, and he has everything. And then he dies. And his last words are paneer, or whatever material thing he has in his mind. Right? His last word is paneer. Right? Paneer. And he dies. Or shrikant. Or jalebis. So what choice did he have? Yes, he had a choice, because this life is based on a previous life. There's a succession of lives. And therefore, it makes sense. Not only it makes sense, religion has to make sense. It has to be reasonable. It's not that God can be unreasonable. Religion has to be reasonable. But they don't have a reasonable answer why the innocent suffer, whereas we know the innocent are not innocent. Nobody is innocent in this world, not even a child. Not even a child, right? If you would see the previous life, you can understand exactly why. So religion has to be, there has to be argument and reasoning, but they're not very sound. That means logic, reason, argument. It doesn't make sense, nor are they transcendental. It means transcendental has no beginning. Let me find out. I have something here of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. You have to hear this. Oh. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, thinking about the virtues and faults of this world, some moralistic monarchists, they're monarchists, but they're moralistic, moralistic conclude that this material world is not a place of unalloyed pleasures. Indeed, the suffering outweighs the pleasures. They decide. And the material world is a prison to punish the living entities. If there is punishment, there must be a crime. If there were no crime, there would be no punishment. What crime did the living entity commit? Unable, because you cannot, if you don't understand previous life, you cannot understand what crime did a living entity commit, that he has to suffer like this. Unable to properly answer this question, some men of small intelligence gave birth to a very wild idea. A very wild idea. Now it comes. You have never heard that before. God created the first man and placed him into a pleasant garden with his wife. Then God forbade the man to taste the fruit of the tree of knowledge. Following the evil counsel of a wicked being, namely the snake, the first men and women tasted the fruit of the tree of knowledge, thus disobeying God's command. In this way they fell from the garden into the material world filled with suffering. Because of their offense, all other living entities, because of their offense, all other living entities are offenders from the moment of birth. Right? We share, according to Christian thinking, in the sin of Adam and Eve. It's called the primordial sin. Some sin was committed before us, primordial sin. And we all suffer that sin. This is how they explain this. Which makes no sense. I mean, if my ancestor commits a sin, why should I suffer? Why should I suffer? What's the point, you know? Everybody suffers his own sin. Because Krishna is Samoham Sarvabhutishu. He's equal to everyone, not partial. Everybody suffers his own deeds. As you saw, if you put a banana seed or a banana into the ground, what will come out? A banana, not an apple. Put an apple into the ground, what will come out? Pineapple? No. Apple. So, pineapple or whatever. So, therefore, because of their offense, all of it, All other living entities suffer from birth. Not seeing any way to remove this offense, God himself took birth as in a human-like form. This is now what happens. We're talking about Christianity. Bhakti Thakur's explanation. Took on his own shoulders the sin of his followers and then died. All who follow him very easily attain liberation, and all who do not follow him fall in eternal hell. In this way, God assumes the human-like form, punishes himself, and thus liberates the living entities. Any intelligent person cannot make sense of any of this. You can't make sense. If you use your reason, you become an atheist in that settlement. And I became an atheist. I went through that. I said, this is simply humbug. So, and like Bhakti Thakur calls it, I mean, this is something I never dared to say in the past. He said they gave birth to a very wild idea. That's what it is, a very wild idea. And so, to accept this mixed-up religion, one must first believe these rather implausible things. That the living entity's life begins at birth and ends at death. Before birth, the living entity does not exist, and after death, the living entity will no longer stay in the material activity. Only human beings have soul, all other creatures have no souls. Only extremely unintelligent persons believe this religion. That's Bhakti Thakur. I'm just quoting, So this goes on more. I don't want to read this now. But he goes, why do animals have no soul? Why is one person born in that situation, one person born in that situation? Their religions to say that God seems to say that God is irrational and that he is unfair. That's what it comes down to, that God is irrational and unfair. Somebody has everything, somebody has nothing, somebody suffers for no reason. For no reason. All of a sudden you suffer. Even a human being, if he's a judge, his judgment is more sound and fair in a petty session court, right? He judges according to the deeds. This person, he stole something, all right, for that. He looks in the book, for this you get 3 months. And this person who did that, you get that. And so it is reasonable. The judgments are supposed to be reasonable, right? But when it comes to God, he can be concluding or passing the most unreasonable sentence at a child just being born, like my brother. With 3 years, what has he done in his life? Nothing bad. He never stole, he never lied. And so then he gets hit with cancer, and the next 4 years he's suffering like a dog, because his skull has to be opened again and again, take another piece out, and again and again and again he suffers, and finally he dies. And we were foolish, because we should have let him die in the beginning. That would have been much better for him, So, this is the thing. Let me read it. In this religion, the living entity is not spiritual in nature. By his own will, God creates the living entities out of matter. Why are the living entities born in very different situations? The followers of this religion cannot say. Why is one living entity born in a house filled with suffering, another one living entity is born in a house filled with joys, another living entity born into a house of a person devoted to God, another living entity born into a wicked atheist house? Why is one person born in a situation where he is encouraged to perform pious deeds, and he performs pious deeds and becomes good? Why another person born in a situation where he is encouraged to sin, and he sins and becomes bad? I saw a poster, I already told you that, on the huge festival in America, where all these alternative people gather in the desert of California, and the Burning Man Festival, about 40,000 kids, young people, entrepreneurs, not old people, they don't go there, but young people, 40 years, and they go there. And a huge poster was out there, unless we sin, Jesus died for nothing. So we have to sin as much as possible. Otherwise, he didn't die he didn't have a cause to die. So let's sin. Like there's a song, let's dance. So let's sin as much as possible. Otherwise, Jesus died for nothing. You see, it has become so perverted and away from reality that people ask questions. Why? Mudas. Because they are mudas. Namam duskitinu mudha. You may be a highly intelligent philosopher, a mundane philosopher, a great thinker like Albert Einstein, but when it comes to spiritual life, that section that governs spirituality is like the size of a moonbeam in comparison to the rest of the brain. And so therefore people cannot understand. They just cannot understand because their brain is like a buffalo. Buffalo cannot understand. You can preach to buffalo up to the end of Kali Yuga and understand you're a buffalo and you should come to the human form. But it doesn't work because he cannot understand. Krishna says some look at the soul as amazing, some describe him as amazing, some hear of him as amazing, others can't understand. And that's the majority of mankind. You can't understand. India is different. It's a blessed land. People are born here with common sense. In Western countries, common sense is not common. So, this is Prabhupada said that. I'm just reflecting his beauty in expression. And so, why do animals have no soul? Why do birds and beasts have no souls like human beings? Why do human beings have only one life? And because of their action, in that life when they are rewarded in eternal hell or eternal heaven to be punished. Any person who believes in a truly kind and merciful God will find this religion completely unacceptable. Bang. There it is. You see, therefore, when Krishna says, Sarvadharman, we should give this up, because it is manadharma. Manadharma, There's one of the greatest verses in the Chaitanya Charitamrita is this one. I quoted it many times. No, it's not that one. Give me one moment. It's worth it. I found it. Sri Chaitanya Prabhum Vande. Balopiyat anugrahat taran nana mata graha vyaptam siddhanta sagaram. For my respectful obeisance to Sri Chaitanya Prabhu, now it comes, by whose mercy even an ignorant child can swim across the ocean of conclusions about the material, about the absolute truth. There's an ocean of conclusions. This idea, that idea. Universities are full of books written by this conclusion, that conclusion. And what is this verse by Lord Chaitanya? He is quoting from Mahabharata that one is not a Muni if one doesn't disagree with another Muni. Huh? What's the first? What is the first word? Tarka, that's what it is, Tarka, I tell you. I help you. My computer is an apple and he knows everything. Apples are made in heaven. Whoever goes here never comes back. Mam prapya mam nivartate tadama paramamama. That's a fact. So Taka Pratishta is a verse. Now I have to look here. Give me a moment, I find it. It's all buried in the crevices of this Taka. Tako Pratishta Shrutayo Vibhinna. Nasavrishir Yasya Matam Nabinam Dharmasya Tattvam Nitam Guhayam Mahajano Yena Kataipantam. This is a verse spoken by Yudhishthira in Mahabharata Vana Parva 313.117. And dry arguments are inconclusive. A great personality whose opinion does not differ from others is not considered to be a sage. So therefore you have so many different ideas about the Bible. This concept, that concept, one book after another. Every year more books are written about the Bible. This idea, that idea. Some people think Jesus was a peasant. Somebody thinks Jesus was a Greek mystic, a Greek cynic. Somebody this, somebody that. I mean, there's so many, a revolutionary. There's so many ideas because it is all, by the end of the day, it comes down to mental speculation. And so, therefore, the verse is, I offer my respectful obeisance to Sri Chaitanya Prabhu, by whose mercy even an ignorant child can swim across the ocean of conclusions about the absolute truth. It's an ocean. You know, if you want to get into it, just in Christianity, I know quite a bit of it, probably more than anybody in ISKCON. But there are so many different ideas and conclusions, it's just not worth to get into even, you know, except of admiring the magnitude of human brains, you know, how they can be so fertile to come to so many different conclusions. Then he says, which are full of the crocodiles of the various theories. Now, the word crocodile is very important because the word crocodile, why do we have to be afraid of crocodiles? Huh? They eat you. They eat you. Have you ever been attacked by a crocodile? Who has been attacked by a crocodile? Did you outrun it? How did you save yourself? What? I'm the crocodile of Maya. I had a real experience of a crocodile. He was chasing me. And it was only due to the fact that there was a highway. I raced over the highway. And there was a car just coming. And he went on the brakes and he hit me still. Just touched my shirt, right? And the crocodile went into the wheel. And that is. And the man came out and said, man, he said, praise the Lord. If I would have come 1 split second earlier, 1 split second later, you would have been dead. He was huge from here to where you were sitting, not exactly, but half of it. And this fat. And you cannot outrun a crocodile. Huh? Gainesville. There are these lakes, you know, and it's full of crocodiles and alligators, you know. Somebody suggested to throw a nuclear bomb on it because they can't get rid of them. You know, so it was. I just looked into the water. I was walking there with my japa beads in my hand, and all of a sudden I looked what is that? This mouse. It was just like in a movie. You know, this mouse came up this way, readily, and then he ran. And you cannot outrun a crocodile unless you go this way. You see, you run this way and you turn. Because his vision is small. He doesn't have a long, wide angle. He has a narrow angle lens, right? So you can't. And most people, you're not able to do that, to do such a move, to go to the side because you're in panic. You just run for your life. And so it's significant that these are crocodiles, because think about it. There are so many people, they're born, into a particular religiosity, or they're convinced by some evangelist to take this knowledge, and they can't get out. If you say one word different, they become agitated. If you reason, let's reason about God. You can, in Vedic philosophy, you can reason. Everything is logic, reason, beside revelation. It makes sense. And so by the mercy, then the purport is by the mercy of the personality of God as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Even an inexperienced boy with no education and culture can be saved from the ocean of darkness, which is full of the various types of philosophical doctrines that are like dangerous aquatic animals. The philosophy of the Buddha and the argumentative presentation of the Jnanis, the yoga system of Patanjali and Gautama, and the system of philosophers like Kanada, Kapila, and Dattatreya are all dangerous creatures in the ocean of nations. By the grace of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai. By the grace of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, one can have real understanding of the essence of knowledge, just like this wonderful Veda, Veda, Aveda, this Achintya Veda, Veda Tattva. Such a perfect understanding of this oneness with us, with God, at the same time. Thank you very much. There's a big difference also. You see, we understand this by this simple, but very profound formula. By the grace of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we can have real understanding of the essence of knowledge, and by avoiding these sectarian views and accepting the lotus feet of Krishna as the ultimate goal of life, let us all worship Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for his gracious mercy on the conditioned souls. It is wonderful, you see, because we are jiva, and no living entity is. There is actually, we read this the other day, there's only one living being in the ultimate consideration. There's no second entity, Prabhupada said that. There's only God. It's the only living being there is, and we are just his parts and parcels. Like my finger is a part of my hand, but there's only one Prithu Das, to my knowledge. And so there's only one, and there people are either Vishnu Tattva or they are Jiva Tattva, one of the two things. There's nothing in between. Jiva Tattva. And so all living energies in the material world are Jiva Tattva. And in the spiritual world also, the majority is Jiva Tattva, but they are infallible, whereas here everybody is fallible. Even the Pope of Rome. No, even with his church doctrine that the Pope cannot, he's infallible. No one is infallible in this material world. At least that's what Krishna says. So who I'm supposed to believe, the Pope or Krishna? So we have to understand it, and let's go to this. Excuse me, when I have the tendency to go so far away sometimes from the original, because I can't help it to philosophize a particular statement and start philosophizing about it. That's the nature of these subjects, that you get carried away, like Socrates, the famous Socrates, everybody knows him. So he stood with his friend on the street in front of his house, and they were philosophizing on and on. The wife was screaming from upstairs. He went like this, and again and again she screamed. Because he was not listening to her. She wanted him probably to take the meal. So it was always, and so finally she took the night pot. It's the pot where you pass urine in, and threw it on Socrates. And he was drenched in urine. And he said to his friend, you see, after the thunder, there's rain. That was his comment. After the thunder, there's rain. That was his only thing he had to say about it. He was completely cool about it. He didn't care. His philosophy had captured his mind in such a deep way that he didn't care about the external circumstances. So Krishna is what he is. He is the Param Brahma. Like Arjuna has this wonderful Param Brahm, Param Dham, Pavitam Idamam Uttam. That's Pavitam Idamam Uttam. Pavitam Uttamam Pratyaksha Pratvaksha Agamam Dharmam Susukam Kadum Avyam. That verse, he is the supreme. In awe, Arjuna is speaking this. The supreme abode, the supreme, impure, the most impure of everything. You are the Supreme Lord. Then he says, Ahusram Rishaya Savya Devashina Rastata. All the great sages like Narada, Vyasa, Devala, Vyasa, they all say this. And now you're saying it to yourself. And Krishna didn't, he was not shy speaking about himself, his glories, saying, Aham Savasya Prabhu, I'm the source of everything. Whole creation rests upon me. One who knows this worships me with all his heart. You never hear anybody speaking like this in world history, unless he's mad. And then the next verse, the whole creation rests upon me like pearls are strung on a thread. There's no truth beyond me. That's what he says. There's no truth beyond me, right? The whole creation, the whole universes, all these universes are resting on me like pearls on a thread. Who can speak like this? This wonderful experience. And still people don't accept. And one plague after another is happening. Now we have this pandemic. Now we have heat in America up to 50 degrees. One forest fire after the other. One calamity after another, but people don't listen. Why? What is the word for that? If somebody sees all the miseries of the material world, nuclear war is around the corner, practically speaking. Now with the troubles in the Chinese Sea. Around the corner. And still they don't see it. They don't understand it. Why? What is the answer? Buffalo. The answer is buffalo. It's so obvious. It's really obvious, that one plague after the other, one First World War, then Second World War, now Third World, and incessant raw incidents of war and suffering and shooting and killing, and people, they don't understand it. Like a buffalo doesn't understand why is somebody dying, why is somebody suffering, why his friend buffalo is killed by a car. He doesn't even understand it. He goes simply, right? It's called buffalo. Krishna uses the word, he doesn't use the word buffalo. He uses the word muda, which also means ass. So Krishna says asses and I say buffalo. It means the same thing. How many times Krishna insults humanity in Bhagavad Gita that he uses the word muda? 5 times. 5 times. Namam Diskrishna Muda is one of them. Avajananti Mamuda is another one. Because he tells them what they are, but they don't want to hear that. They think, oh, I'm very beautiful, I'm very powerful. I've done so many things. Right? I've done so many things. Look at me, like little children. Little child is standing on his head, says to his father, look at me, look at me, look at me. Like children. The whole world is childish. It's so childish, And they don't recognize, in this way, they don't recognize that the Supreme Lord has moved between us and he will move again between us because religion deteriorates. He is a maintainer of all living entities. It's not anybody else, ultimately. If you can think of something wonderful, that energy, that power comes from Krishna. Yesterday I was talking about that. We are all like little light bulbs. Just a light bulb. The light bulb in itself has no light. But then it can be manipulated by a switch, ultimately by the power station. So Krishna gives every living entity a certain amount of light. And when there's a need to do something important, then it will increase. When it fits his plan, it will increase. And so then somebody becomes a big demon, because Krishna increases demonic capabilities, you see? And people say, oh, I did something. But Krishna says, I'm the strength of the strong, the power of the powerful. I'm the intelligence of the intelligence. He is that. That's why somebody is able to do wonderful things, another one is not doing anything. Somebody is very strong, somebody is not strong. Somebody is weak. This is because Krishna can decrease and increase the capacity, intellectual capacity or physical or mental capacity at every, not only can, he does that at every moment. He does that. Or the physical. Now when Vidura, when he met Dhritarashtra, what did he tell him? He said, my dear uncle, your teeth are loose, right? You're coughing up mucus, and you're hard of hearing. That's me. I have all these symptoms. I have only a few teeth in my mouth, although it looks beautiful, all Hollywood. And I cough up mucus, yes, and I'm hard of hearing. Anybody who is with me can attest to that I have to ask sometimes 5 times, what is that? What did you say? So that's old age. Krishna decreases the capability of the body as time goes on. It's unavoidable. So we are all under Krishna's control. And therefore, it says here that Nitya Nityananam Chaitana Chaitananam, he maintains all living entities. It's him. That's why we are maintained, that's why we are speak. Somebody can speak beautifully, somebody, when you ask him a question, I don't know. I don't know. I have no idea. See, people are bewildered like this, Krishna is not dependent on others. We are depending on others at every moment. The air, for example, Krishna can take the air away. It can be turned into a hurricane, the cane of Hari. Krishna's cane to punish is a hurricane, And we can say flood. In Germany, yesterday 70 people drowned in Germany because there's a flood. 70 people, unheard of in the history of Germany. The flood came so fast, hundreds of houses collapsed on top of these people and died in the middle of the night, So Krishna can do anything. We are depending on his goodwill that we wake up in the morning in one piece. Every morning we wake up in one piece, we say, I'm still here. I have another day to chant Hare Krishna, perform devotional service, eat prasadam in the association of the devotees. So he's not dependent on anything, we are. If the sun doesn't rise, good luck. If it's raining all day, even if you're strong, you get sick. Who got sick in the last days? Anybody? You got sick? Yes, you did. I heard. You got a cough. So people get sick. There's nothing they can do about it. All of a sudden, his life is destroyed from one moment to another. Krishna is independent. Swarat. So he says that Kapila appeared as a son of Kadama, but because Kapila is an incarnation of the Lord, Kadama Muni, the father, offered him full respectful obeisance in full surrender. That is what Prabhupada said. Hare Krishna. And Prabhupada ends up, fools and rascals called Mudas consider him one of them, and therefore they deride him. They refuse to accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead because they cannot understand him. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Avajaranti Mamuda. You know, and not only they're unintelligent, they can be quite nasty demons, you know. Like one friend of mine, Manidhara, a huge book distributor, we went on book distribution together, and he had a toothache. There was a hole in his tooth. And so he went to the doctor, next tooth dentist. And the doctor, and he was an devotee, the doctor said, aha, now you're here in my house, you're a Hare Krishna devotee. Is that true? I said, yes. So what's your philosophy? And he said, we believe in the soul. The soul does not exist, the man said. There's no such a thing like soul. Manidhara said, yes, I'm the soul, you're the soul. No, there's no soul. So they argued for some time while this boy was sitting in a chair already. So at one stage, this demon became so angry that he said, what is the tooth? Is this one? Okay. He took the pliers and said, the soul does not exist. And pulled out a perfectly healthy tooth. You know, there was just a little hole in it. He was such a demon, he had these big glasses. Manidhara told me, the soul does not exist. And Manidhara laughed so loud he couldn't believe it. I mean, it was painful, but the blood of his was all over the doctor actually, you know, because people are such demons, you know, that they cannot, if you don't agree with them, demons become very agitated, very angry, right? They can do all kinds of things to you. Just like Kamsa is a classical example, and so many classical examples of demons who put somebody, because he doesn't agree with him, immediately into misery, into a working camp or concentration camp. You know, my father himself, he was coming out of church. He was a religious man. And the Gauleiter, the top Nazi of the city, is standing right there with his top man. And it's not a big town. Everyone knew my father because he had a big shop. And so this Gauleiter says, Heil Hitler, Mr. Brinkmann. My father said, you also can say Greek God, because that's the general way how people greet each other in Germany, Greek God. You can also say, my father said, you can also say Greek God. The man looked at his people, left and right. Next night they came for him at 2 o'clock. Destroyed all the windows of the shop, you know, dragged him out of bed and clubbed him down with a bag of rifles into the truck and drove him into the concentration camp. Just because, huh? My father, yeah, in front of my mother, yeah, sure. Yeah, in front of the children. I don't remember, I was too young, but others, you know, I mean, just because of not agreeing with him, my father was tortured for a long time, every night, you know. It's outrageous what people are able to do. If you think about I could talk about the cruelties of the Roman Empire, but we don't want to do this here in front of the Lord. What are people able to do in these amphitheaters? What were people do in the war? What the Germans did to the Russians when they fell in the villages? What the Russians did when they came back in Germany? It's just unbelievable. Somebody pushes a button and 70,000 people go up in flames, you know. It's just unbelievable how demonic people are, because they're not purified from the influence of material nature. They don't chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, and you gave me the opportunity to give a class. It's always fun, I must say. Do you have any questions? Yeah. Please, Bihari Lal, the son of Bihar, speak. You lifted your head. Huh?
He was just shouting, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Okay. So I thank you very much. I think I will be here another week, or minimum week, but I think even 2 maybe. It depends on you, really. You let me know when you can come to my office and say, when you're leaving.
You can leave forever.
Huh?
You can leave forever according to your
Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Go, Premananda.